This time, Islamic Secrets will reveal the story of Dr. Abu Ameenah, Bilal Philips' conversion to Islam, who succeeded in becoming an Islamic expert from America. The life journey of Dr. Abu Ameenah Bilal Philips to becoming a Muslim scholar who is quite respected today turns out to be very interesting. The man who was born in Jamaica and grew up in Canada was a convert to Islam who succeeded in converting 3,000 American soldiers to Islam. And before becoming a Muslim, he worked as a musician, or rather a professional guitar player. Philips was born in Jamaica into an intellectual family. Both of his parents were teachers. His grandfather was even a pastor and Bible expert. It is not surprising that Philips grew up to be a devout Christian. At the age of 11, Bilal Philips moved with his family to Canada. It was in that city that he received his education and grew up. Starting his life story from a non-Muslim to an Islamic expert who was active in preaching. Abu Ameenah Bilal Philips was a convert to Islam who devoted himself to Islamic education. He was so fascinated by the religion brought by the Prophet Muhammad that he studied it in Haramain, which is the birthplace of Islam. Initially, Philips and his family had moved to Malaysia. It was there that Philips' first contact with Islam. However, he was not yet interested in Islam because at that time, Philips was still very young and preferred playing rock music rather than thinking about his religion. Not long after, he and his family returned to Canada. When Philips was in college, young people there were crazy about marijuana parties. However, he did not take part. Instead, this phenomenon made him take biochemistry lessons in addition to the art course he received on a scholarship. Philips' search for identity is not over. On campus, he became interested in student politics. He was also involved in student actions. He then studied socialism. Then he studied social politics until he went to California. He also joined black activists there. However, Philips was disappointed because his friends were drug addicts. His anti-drug stance is still deeply rooted in him. He also changed direction and returned to Canada. Philips studied other ideologies. He then became fascinated by communism in China. Socialism apparently had deep roots in his heart. He also went to China to receive training in guerrilla warfare supporting communism. However, upon arrival, Philips felt the same way he had when he joined the socialists in California. Only this time it wasn't drugs. His communist friends were heavy smokers. He was again disappointed and returned to Canada. When he returned to campus, one of his female friends in the student group reportedly converted to Islam. He then began studying Islamic teachings. He read a lot of Islamic literature, and there was one book that had a big influence on his heart. The book is entitled Misunderstood Religion by Muhammad Qutb. Not only studying its teachings, Philips also studied its history. He was also fascinated by the role of Muslims in the liberation of African countries from European colonialism. He increasingly felt interested in Islam. Philips also started defending Islam until he decided to accept the Shahada. I started defending Islam. Finally, some introspection and reflection made me embrace Islam in 1972. He said in his biography in the Saudi Gazette. Philips decided to convert to Islam in 1972. The process of converting to Islam was quite short, only 6 months after reading Islamic books and discussing Islam. He admitted to the Saudi Gazette that while studying Islam himself, he only fell in love with the political style of Islam. However, in terms of faith, Philips has not been able to build it in his heart. The concept of God that he understands in communist philosophy is certainly very different from Islam. A year after saying 2 sentences of Shahada, Philips wanted to perfect his knowledge of Islam. Not satisfied with studying autodidactically, he decided to go to the birthplace of Islam, Saudi Arabia. I joined Medina University and took a degree in Ushuluddin, comparative religions, in 1979. Then, took a master's in Islamic theology from Riyadh University in 1985 and completed a PhD in Islamic theology in 1994, he said, who was very hungry to learn knowledge. After successfully achieving his MA degree, Philips worked in the religious department of the Saudi Arabian Air Force headquarters in Riyadh. At that time, the Gulf War was breaking out, and his job was to teach about Islam to U.S. troops at their military bases in Bahrain and in the eastern region of Saudi Arabia. Because the image of Islam was so distorted in the U.S., I and 5 other Americans, after the Gulf War, were involved for 5.5 months in a project to dispel doubts about the Islamic religion among the approximately 500,000 U.S. troops in the Gulf region. As a result, more than 3,000 U.S. soldiers eventually converted to Islam, Philips said. He then went to the U.S. to help provide spiritual guidance to soldiers who had recently converted to Islam. With the help of the organization Muslim Members of the Military, MMM, Philips held various conferences and activities that successfully urged the U.S. military to build Surah facilities at all its military bases. The U.S. government is also responsible for asking the Muslim community to nominate candidates for clerics who will become spiritual guides for Muslim soldiers in the U.S. military. Several Gulf War soldiers who converted to Islam went to Bosnia to provide training to the Bosnian people and fought alongside them against military atrocities. Serbia, said Philips. He then traveled to the Philippines to give lectures in various places on the island of Mindanao, where he spoke about the Islamization of education among Muslims. This led to the development of an Islamic-oriented university in Cotabato City, where he established an Islamic Studies department at the MA level to prepare Muslim-oriented teachers. In 1994, he migrated to the UAE at the invitation of Sheikh Salim al-Qasimi, where he joined the Dubai-based charity organization known as Dar al-Bur and founded the Islamic Information Center, now known as Discover Islam, in Karama to clarify misunderstanding about Islam. Helping him in this effort were people from various countries including Uthman Bari, an Irish convert, Ahmed Abalos, a Filipino convert, and Abdul Latif from Kerala. He said that in the past 5 years, about 1,500 people from America, Australia, Britain, Russia, China, Germany, the Philippines, Sri Lanka, India, and Pakistan had converted to Islam at the center. The reasons behind their conversion were frustration and dissatisfaction, in addition to the need for a strong rational and spiritual foundation. There are also those who do it to marry a Muslim. There are also those who choose because of curiosity triggered by interesting discoveries about Islam and its people, he said. In the last 3 years, he founded a department called the Foreign Literature Department at the Dar al-Fatah Printing House, which aims to publish literature in foreign languages, which aims to explain Islamic teachings to non-Arab people. One of his happiest moments occurred when his parents, who were both in their 70s and spent their lives around Muslims in northern Nigeria, Yemen, Malaysia, accepted Islam. This happened 4 years ago, after they saw how American society was deteriorating and the changes that were taking place in his life. Currently, he teaches about aspects of Islamic history and scientific studies regarding the compilation of hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad because hadith refers to prophetic hadiths about his way of life, which were compiled and recorded in texts and became the basis of the Prophet Muhammad Islam. Your school has over 150,000 students coming from 219 countries. Where do you see the school in the next 5 years? In the next 5 years, I hope we can reach more than 1 million students, and the school's goal is to reach as many as we can. We want to reach many Muslims and make it as accessible as possible to them. What is clear is that the school is not to make money. Its aim is to reach Muslims from Islamic candidates. This is the story of Dr. Ameenah Bilal Philips converting to Islam. From a guitarist who converted to Christianity to becoming a very influential Islamic figure in the world. This aspect of his life brought major changes to other societies and the Islamic world. His figure can provide wisdom for all of us, from non-Muslims to today's Islamic figures. May Allah give him health and keep him away from all evil. I hope the story is inspiring and useful. Thank you for taking the time to follow our video until the end. Follow our other videos which discuss a lot about sailors, scientists, people converting to Islam, and so on.